Welcome, everyone. This is Poor Historians Podcast, misadventuring into the archives of medical history and beyond. Except when we don't do that, and we do stuff like this on our bonus episode drops. I'm Dr. Max, and I'm joined here by my good friends and colleagues, Dr. Aaron.
What's up?
Weird. And Dr. Mike.
Hey, what's up?
Too cool for school. As well as our medical history intern turned entertainment critic, Alba. Hello, Alba.
Howdy, partner.
Reviewing medical movies and TV shows is kind of our bonus side gig on our medical history show these days. We thought we'd do another one, and this one comes from a listener suggestion. I'd never heard of this show before. We're going to talk about it a little bit before we get going into the episode, but I think this is my favorite of the things that we've watched so far. And so very special thanks of the show. We'll talk about it. We'll hash it out.
I know, but...
Come on. The other ones were...
Of the things we watched.
Of the things we've watched.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a low bar.
of the things we watched.
It's not good, but it's a low bar. So special thanks to Gina for suggesting this show to us, and that show is Royal Pains. We started with episode 1, the pilot, and perhaps we'll investigate some more as we go, but today's episode is about the first episode of this show. And I didn't spend a ton of time. I wanted to look up a little bit more about this series. Royal Pains is a show that ran from 2009 to 2016, and it was nominated for a few awards. So it has that going for it. None that I actually recognized.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
but
yeah.
I don't know. It was, no
Razzies?
Oscars or Grammys. It wasn't Razzies either. It was like, I don't know. But anyway, so it got a few. And then I was like, I want to find something interesting about this show. And I went to the IMDb trivia page, and it had the fact that the mansion that's owned by Boris, who's like we'll talk to him when we get there, but like he's, super rich German dude. It was the second largest private home ever built in the U.S. And it's called Osheka Castle. It was built from the years of 1914 to 1919 for Otto Hermann Kahn.
Where is it? Is it actually in the Hamptons?
It's kind of Long
Spoiler.
Island area. No, it's Long
Spoiler
Island.
alert.
Oh, no,
That's
spoiler
where this
alert.
terrible show takes place.
Yeah, where is it?
It's in Long Island.
Oh, okay.
Zillow does not list the number of bedrooms, but the most recent Zestimate is 4.987 million.
There's no
like
way
that.
That's what it is.
I feel like that's low.
That
Probably
feels
times
low.
10. Yeah.
It's probably in bad repair. I don't know. It's beautiful looking. Let me just think about the property taxes. It's Long Island. It's probably...
That's probably what the
God.
property taxes are. Yeah.
And you got no access to public transportation out there,
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
a real heck of a thing
That
to get
would
on
be
the train. Yeah.
I think it does have a helicopter pad, but yeah. So I mean, the basic premise of the show is we've got a main character that's an ER doctor, so we obviously love that here.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he though?
Yeah.
Because
well-
they keep referencing, what comes into the emergency room.
Oh, yeah,
I know.
because I think he does say emergency department. Yeah, because he's looking
Yeah.
for...
Because they said that a couple times, but he was doing things that are outside the purview.
He's not your normal ER doctor. We'll get to that in a minute.
No, he has all the specialties.
And we'll talk about his story arc, but yeah, we have a main character that's an ER doctor, or at least on paper is what they wrote down, and he has a change in practice, and we'll explore this. And so, did you guys have any general thoughts or feelings on this series? I was saying I enjoyed this more than the other ones, but it was still bad.
It's because of the gratuitous sex scenes and.
Oh,
yeah, I mean...
Yeah, they got that out of the way right away. I was like, am I watching an HBO show? Because that
seriously.
lady's clothes are already off.
Doctors After Dark.
We haven't even gotten to the intro yet.
It's true. It's true. I don't know. Was this least favorite thing we watched, Mike? Or
Me? Yeah, absolutely the least
Really?
favorite.
Worse
Wow,
than Madam
wow.
Web? Are you kidding me?
No, well, that was so bad that it was almost borderline getting to the good bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so terrible that I couldn't stop making fun of it the whole time.
You mean the
this.
line after a day of life and death, the only thing that makes me happy is the most beautiful girl in the world? That didn't get you? That didn't get you?
Yeah.
That was too cheesy for you?
It was too cheesy, and I just didn't like their energy. It was gross.
Yeah, their energy
And
was
then
gross.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't
for sure.
understand. So I was watching it, and I was like, is this a period piece? Because they have blackberries. But I think that must have been the
Yeah.
2009
It was
part.
2009.
Good 2009, yeah.
Is it? And he's driving a Saab. Yeah.
It's a historical.
Is this a period piece?
Gotta love a sob.
Aaron, what did you think? What was your general impression here?
I had to just relax into the cheese and kind of, put on some Max Headroom in the background, and then it was great. I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit.
Oh, there's just something about it that I didn't like. I didn't like the guy. Like, at least he's handsome, right? It's not like the other guy from The Resident.
How handsome is
he? Is so handsome.
Oh God. I liked it. At first it was hard to get over the in the biz we call it schmacting with some of the characters.
That's so perfect.
Yeah, and the acting. Yeah, we call it schmacting.
Yeah, there was I think it's just bad schmriting.
I want to know what schmacting is. What's the definition?
Schmacting is like really over the top acting, where like another word for I would say is like indicating, where you're not being the character, you're like showing that I'm calling off this wedding. That's schmacting.
Oh, Jim Carrey type.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to just get into the schmacting. I thought the writing. I mean.
I liked the writing.
That line where he's like, "It smells like a moose had sex with Chinese food in your apartment."
Actually, I laughed at that, and I was getting mad at myself for laughing.
I think I liked the writing more toward the end. I liked the moral of the story and like thinking about the ethics. And maybe that's because I'm, about to change careers myself. But I liked that kind of stuff.
Some of the things that they said were kind of deep, but then it was like. It's like watching Jersey Shore and then somebody says something deep like that. It's still not redeemable.
It's jarring.
Yeah, that's
jarring. No, I agree. Okay, so let's get into it.
Let's start. He likes to play basketball.
We have our which I'm going to say this is, I think Alba pointed this out in we were texting each other. This is now the quintessential, you're writing a medical show. You have to start with somebody collapsing and needing CPR. So what happens here? So we start out, we're playing basketball in the streets in New York City, group of guys shooting hoops, and then one of them collapses.
Well,
right?
First the hero gets a nice setup, right? He's got a behind the back pass. He's got some moves. So sets up like he's kind of cool. He's kind of cool.
Good.
He set a couple picks too.
Yeah.
It was so good that they actually replayed it.
Mike, I'm glad you said that because I was sitting there and the biggest aggrievement I had is you can't set a pick while you're moving. He was like running at the guy in like pick stance. I was like, that is so inoffensive.
But then it was such a bad foul that they played it twice.
It's true.
And also, I don't know that you pick when you're playing pickup basketball outside.
Yeah, probably not.
You gotta throw hands at some point.
Okay, what are y'all saying? That you pick while you're playing? What are you talking about?
The pick is where you like stand there and you try to block the defender from like chasing the guy that has the ball.
Yeah, you set up.
Great.
You do it in college basketball.
Okay, I was like, is this a sports term or a medical term?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody seems like they're his age or maybe even a little bit older, but he keeps referencing the guy as a kid.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I was confused if it was a different patient that he was talking about.
It probably was just bad editing.
I don't know.
There was probably a kid in the show and they cut it out.
Yeah, so the guy collapses and the writers get out the legitimate American Heart Association guideline notebook and they read step 1, check for pulse. No pulse.
Oh, but how did he do it though? I loved how he did it.
He like straddles the dude.
Yeah,
straddles the dude, and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be beside the patient, but okay. And then he says, "Call 911. That's good. You get help right away. No pulse."
He pointed at people. You do
he said
That's
you
important.
call 911. Yeah, that stood out to me.
Exactly, but that is exactly what you're supposed to do.
Gain control of the scene, but every time you point at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you.
He did start CPR right away. I like that. He broke CPR, which I did not like, but I'll give it to him.
He broke it for a long time. I was like, this guy is still dead, guys.
And he's not. And he's also doing CPR, still straddling the guy, and he was too low. But okay, he started CPR right away.
His pancreas is going to be revived.
Then all of a sudden he's like, get a bunch of ice packs, which I actually thought, I was like, okay, now
maybe he was overheating or like heat exhaustion.
No, so there is the hypothermia protocol. So out of hospital cardiac arrest, if somebody has a cardiac arrest, you do as a paramedic put a bunch of ice in their groin and around the neck and in the armpits to try to cool them to protect their brain.
I've never seen someone come in iced.
Oh.
That guy did ice before airway. Let's be clear. He did ice before airway.
And then what did he do with the plastic bag? What was that for?
I think that was like a glove. He's improvising. He did a finger sweep.
I thought he was trying to give him water, which I was like, that's a really bad idea. Don't just pour water in an unconscious man's mouth.
Don't do that. No, don't do that.
But maybe he was using it as a glove. Okay.
He later said that he was clearing the airway, but
yeah. You don't clear the airway.
He already knows he's not choking. He was watching him play basketball. He wasn't eating a hot dog.
Right. Oh, and then he's like the finger sweep, which is where you put your fingers in to try to like lift the tongue out of the way. We don't do it anymore.
No longer approved.
We do.
You
and
could actually make it work.
Pretty sure because I think I'm looking on the wall.
You could lose
EMT,
a finger that way, right?
My EMT was about this time. We definitely didn't do finger sweeps.
No, you don't do finger sweep.
This
If there is something in there, you
date.
might actually push it further down.
Correct.
But we know that there's nothing in there unless he was eating a hot dog while he was playing.
Yep, that's true. So this is the way that we are introduced to our hero, Dr. Hank Lawson, which is not as bad as Dr. Conrad Hawkins. But
no,
I agree. Hank Lawson is fine. But then he says they say the paramedics are 10 minutes away. He's like, that's not fast enough. That's 100% garbage because the paramedics have advanced equipment and they have a defibrillator and they have all these other things that they need to do. And they're the ones who should be packing the ice. But he like MacGyver's, he sees a construction board and he helps everyone lift him into the truck, which by the way, a bunch of guys lifting a dude off a basketball court into the truck is going to take you legit at least 10 minutes, if not way longer than that. And by that time,
MacGyver the board.
But I get it. Plot point. He's like a doer, not a watcher. So he's going to like take control of the scene. Like, okay, like I've seen worse. Just get him to the hospital. But
little things bug me. And I think I was watching because he's like, does anyone have an SUV? And then everyone raised their hand. So I didn't know if that was like a popular culture thing from 2009. And then they get in the back of a damn truck.
It's not even
he didn't ask who's got a truck. Who's got an SUV?
That's good.
I did not notice that.
Maybe he just doesn't know what vehicles are.
He knows medicine so well that he doesn't know what vehicles are. I think that's what it is. Okay, so they take him to the hospital. The basketball player collapsed, and of course they bring the SUV. I'm guessing to the ambulance bay. I don't know, but they wheel it in, and all the nurses are like, "Dr. Lawson, I thought this was your day off," and he says, "It was my day off."
Yeah.
If that was me, I'd be like, it still is. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I have a question about this. What are the chances? Like, I know you probably wouldn't go in on your day off. You'd be like, heck no, I'm off. But if you show up, what are the chances that they're going to be like, put on scrubs and stick around for work?
Zero. Absolutely zero.
Right.
That's what I figured. Now, when I worked in a
Unless
restaurant,
it's a mass
high
casualty.
chances, depending.
Yeah, mass casualty is different, but this is not a mass casualty. This is a
usually. Yeah,
the
person on would be like, hey, thanks for bringing him in. We really appreciate that. I'll give you an update.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
We wouldn't expect people to stay.
Because there are people on call, right? Isn't it like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there's like
there's people like at the hospital. There. You're taking, that's where the doctors are. You're at the hospital.
Everybody's there. But like, if it's like, oh, we're understaffed, that there are extra people.
Although
that are on
curiously,
call, right?
in these whole first set of scenes, there's only him and one other dude in a level 1 trauma center in New York. That's because they make it clear later in the show, spoiler warning, this is a level 1 trauma center where he's working. And there's only 2 doctors available. And one of them is the guy who was off.
Correct.
And he just puts a scrub top on while he's like talking to the hospital administrator who's in the ER running the show.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. But yeah, so he accompanies the patient in to the room, and they're like, well, it's your day off. And he's like, whatever. Drop 5 of Versed and 150 of Sucks.
Yeah,
which
I love
are
that.
technically real words, and you would possibly do that. But he does this, and he like kind of pieces out and leaves. It's like, no, if you're going to sedate a patient to put a breathing tube in, you're at the head of the bed. You are.
I think the viewer needs to know that once that succinylcholine goes into their system, they are paralyzed and they will not take a breath on their own for at least 5 minutes.
Right.
What's is that the Versed?
Maybe
or
3 minutes.
Or the.
So Versed's a sedative. Yeah, succinylcholine's it's a neuromuscular blocking agent. So you give that to paralyze the person. So like when you're putting in a breathing tube, their vocal cords don't constrict. And then you're doing that with the anticipation that you'll put the tube in on the first attempt or, pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's like a big deal. You're putting that patient on a ventilator.
Because if you do nothing, you give that medicine and you do nothing, they die 100% of the time.
Okay.
Once you're giving those medicines, you are right there. And the only thing you as an ER doc are doing is managing the airway. And then you can deal with whatever else is happening in your sphere. But this is where they break in. They're like, hey, the paramedics are bringing in another person who's a 68-year-old STEMI. And like all I could say is from Dr. Hank Lawson's point of view is he's not even supposed to be there that day. Like this is Clerks. I mean, Why are you telling him about other patients? He just showed up with one guy and he's seeing it through, which is weird. But don't tell him about other patients. Like, I'm out of here, man. I want to go back to playing basketball.
Right.
Or be there with the guy that you brought in. Like he seemingly
his
knew
friend,
this guy.
you know?
Maybe, right. But this is the middle of the day at a busy trauma center. I guarantee you there's minimum, 4 or 5, like ER docs alone, let alone cardiologists and everyone else in the hospital.
Yeah,
like,
and then all the residents and fellows and
right.
So
Correct.
you are inundated with help.
And we
You
do
don't
find
need Hank
out
there.
that this other patient, they say a 68-year-old STEMI. That's a word, ST elevation MI. It means
Also a
heart
real
attack.
word.
There's a blockage to one or more arteries that are giving the heart its very precious blood supply. So they say this person's coming in, and it just so happens that the hospital administrator, who again is curiously just hanging out in the ER, knows that this STEMI, this heart attack coming in, is a very big deal. In fact, he has a whole wing of the hospital named after him. It's Mr. Gardner, and he's a friend, is what she says. And so Dr. Lawson's like, okay, yeah, I'm on it. And she's like, now. I'm like, well, I don't
Not
know how
even working.
he's moving. Yeah, he's not
even working,
lady.
for one.
Back off. But then this is where I was completely confused.
I didn't know.
I know I wasn't the only one.
Oh my
So
God.
Dr. Hank Lawson, the emergency physician, might double as a cardiologist. Not clear. Not clear what happens.
Yeah,
here.
because he puts in an introducer catheter into the artery, and he describes it in painful but very vague detail, almost like he's just reading words off the box.
Well, he does like a recipe, like
I'm introducing an 8 French catheter into the femoral artery. Oh, it's in the artery. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
and
they
then-
just cracked open some instruction sheets and were like, all right, I'm just going to say exactly
I
what's
narrate
inside.
all my
and
procedures.
honestly, in fairness, that
They're
at least the
correct.
steps that looked more legitimate than any procedure we've seen.
Maybe at this
in any of our
hospital,
shows.
the ER physician does the access for the cardiologist, and then they do the procedure.
That's what I thought might
okay,
have been the case, but we find out that that's not the case.
It's
Here.
not the case. It's not the case.
I just want to say, in reference to like it being the most real, I have to say, except for the femoral, anytime a needle's going into skin in this show, it looks like they took one of those suture pads
Oh, yeah.
that you train on.
Yeah.
Because it was
Yeah.
like just one color, like all flat,
Yeah.
nice, smooth, taut
Yeah.
skin.
Also,
on
did you- Did you notice the gowns they were wearing? They were just like the bedbug gowns. They weren't surgical gowns that you could actually see through them.
God.
You access
I
the
did
femoral
not
artery,
notice
there's going to be
that.
a lot of blood there too. But that one, those in TV shows, those don't bother me quite as much as long as the rest of it's because you're not going to actually stick a needle in an actual person. Like that's
Yeah.
you
They
could
could've
if you had a
put some
better
paint
budget.
on there. You have better makeup. You call a makeup person.
I mean,
You
if you're
can-
watching,
you can put
if you're
some
watching
stuff
some
on
shows,
that
there's a
thing.
lot of gore, so I'm sure they could do it. But I was just like, okay, in the mid 2000s, you're
But just
using a rubber
wait.
model. Okay,
Right.
That
but
part. I
then, but then what happens?
So-
And the guy starts coughing up blood. Blood is leaking out of his mouth.
this
Right.
guy's going for.
We haven't
and-
seen. They're in the cath lab supposedly. We haven't seen
But
a
the
cardiologist.
cath lab is attached direct. You could see the ER desk is right outside the room. Yeah.
Well, they probably just put it in the custodial closet, and they're like, "We have an extra room. Let's make that a cath lab." So yeah, he's in the cath lab by himself and a few nurses with the patient, and the patient starts coughing up blood, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm going to put an airway in this guy too," which is great. That's what you would do if they were
Mhm.
doing that. But it's not clear because at the same time he's putting in the airway, you can see. Like on a screen nearby, that there's fluoroscopy happening.
Yes.
The X-rays are
Yes.
showing his
Yeah.
heart. So he's doing the catheterization as an ear doc himself while he's putting in the airway, which is like baller move, but completely. There's no way in hell
Inappropriate.
he would be
There's
doing
no
it.
way.
Also impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, give me an 8.0 French or whatever breathing tube.
Yeah. There's no way to be
and-
at the airway and the groin at the same time. I'm sorry. This
Yeah.
and
is
calling
not-
out the blade size too.
And ER
Yeah,
doctors don't do angiograms. We don't
Yeah,
do.
no, we don't.
And we don't do
Yeah.
cardiac interventions. This is not how any of that works. And
He's. I mean, I had to do a holla for a Mac 4. I'm like, that's what I use. I was like, good job using the right word. You just
that's the airway tool is what you're referring to. So those are correct words, kind of. But
Mhm.
okay, so he does the breathing tube slash
He got the
Cardiac
tube in without a
catheterization?
stylet.
without a
That was pretty
stylet.
impressive.
That's awesome.
The
No
thing
vent
used
in
to, like, get
sight.
it
No
the
RT.
airway.
Oh no, there was a vent. It was a suction tubing. He put the suction tubing on it, and that was the ventilator.
He did actually, yeah.
So
Yeah, it
there's
was
a little
working.
picture of the blockage, the angio. He's like, cool.
Yeah, I was confused about where that came from. So I had to look up what an angiogram is and like how that happens, because I was like, did this image come from? Did they just stick a camera through his blood vessel?
In reality, what
no.
happens is if you're having a blockage, a STEMI type heart attack, the ST elevation MI, the ST elevation is an EKG finding. That's where that comes from. It usually means there's an artery that's blocked to the heart. Okay, so what they'll do is they do put a catheter, meaning a tube, into the artery, the femoral artery. The cardiologist then
Now more radial artery.
Yes, they can definitely do the radial artery more commonly now. But, they use an X-ray that is like an X-ray video to see where the wire goes, and they thread it up to the heart where they threaded up the aorta to where the cardiac or the coronary arteries come off the aorta and give the heart its blood flow. And then they can actually take that catheter, put it into those tiny little arteries, and then open them up. Okay. So
that's an angioplasty.
That's what's called an angioplasty. And then if you fix a narrowing or blockage, you can leave a stent in place, which is just a device that opens and holds the inside of the artery open.
Done by a fellowship-trained interventional cardiologist, not an ER doctor.
To get to the point where you're doing that procedure, you have done 3 years of internal medicine, you have done 3 years of general cardiology training, and then you have done at least 1 to 2 years, I believe, of interventional training just to do that procedure. However, Dr. Hank Lawson skipped all that. He just did the 3 years of emergency medicine residency somehow.
We don't really know, man. He's big man on campus. He does all the things.
So we find ourselves back in the ER where he's come back from the angio suite or janitor's closet or whatever it is, and the basketball gentleman, the nurse says he has a 3rd-degree heart block, which is a reason you might collapse, I guess.
Well,
it's not the number one, but okay, it could happen.
Maybe he had Lyme disease.
Could have had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
It would maybe be endemic. Anyway, but so his heart is not conducting. The electrical problem is a different problem, but his electrical conduction system of his heart is, medically speaking, goofed up. And it's, he needs a temporary and then a permanent pacemaker. And that's true. They say this in the show. Those are true things that would happen. And for some reason, the Dr. Lawson basically, he asks for the cardiothoracic surgeon. Was that what happened? The cardiothoracic surgeon to put in the pacemaker?
Basically, the kid is more important than the VIP is the thrust of the scene. Like, I do the right thing. He's like, I do the right thing based on who it is, not whether they are.
So he says the rich guy is stable, the other kid is not.
Which
so
he's
do the
not.
kid first, and then.
I mean, unfortunately for him, that's the opposite, right? A STEMI is way more unstable than a. Most of the time, a STEMI would trump a heart block. I mean,
if you're the only doctor in the hospital, the way this works,
right? But he's not.
Well, in a STEMI is the quicker fix too. It's usually put in a stent.
Yeah. Well, and a cardiothoracic surgeon is not your go-to for putting in a pacemaker.
Either a procedure, yeah.
Right. It's you do an electrophysiology doc
anyway,
or any general cardiologist. So,
right.
So is the difference between the two conditions, is the STEMI is that the blood flow to the heart is blocked, like the blood flow feeding the heart muscle is blocked, and the other one was a blockage actually at the heart?
The other one is like an electrical short. Like the heart, the electrical
you need
system.
A plumber and an electrician.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's how you usually describe it.
Very true.
Yep.
All right, we then move from all that chaos, and we come to a fancy restaurant where we have to introduce Dr. Lawson has some attractive girlfriend person. I don't know if they gave her a name. I'm sure
Fiance.
They did. I just missed it. Fiance.
Mm-hmm. Is it Beyonce?
Fiance. Because she shows the ring, she does the.
She does.
That's like you said, the worst flirting in the world.
Yeah.
And that, you're right. That's the schmacting. It's like we are together.
Oh yeah, the whole scene was just
it's so gross.
You want to leave and go have sex tonight rather than eating dinner?
I mean, that's basically what happens. He says, "You don't own this," or she says, "You don't own this body yet." He says, "But I nailed the down payment," and I was just like,
so gross.
Gross. This is so gross. And they go immediately, skip out. They order drinks, don't have them, and then they go back to the apartment.
Hey, I endorse leaving early, but those two had no chemistry. That's
no.
And I was like, I don't like these people at this point.
It would have been better if he was like, "Do you like the sex?" And she was like, "Yes, I like the sex. Let's go back and do the sex." Yes, please, sir.
Less painful to hear. Yeah, so they go back, they have the sex, great. And then, the chemistry between these two was zero.
Yeah. But then she says, everything's wonderful. And you're like, oh, okay, you're setting me up for things to change. And then it changes.
Maybe it could be that, like,
dun, dun, dun.
It's supposed to be that she is interested in him and his status and his money and not him.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
obviously says, I always wanted to marry a doctor. Blah, blah, blah. So, right. So, obviously, she has
And you're a
love for
doctor.
him. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, they're just painting a picture here.
I mean, so this whole next scene was just, it's an epic meltdown, right?
It is. It is.
After he gets...
Yeah, they call him into the M&M, and this is not how it works. They basically just dress him down.
Well, now you have to explain what M&M is.
So morbidity, M&M stands for morbidity and mortality, and it's a conference where doctors yell at other doctors. It is actually, ironically, protected from malpractice. So like the things that are said in those conferences are completely safe from any sort of discovery legally. So you can say whatever you want. So you could tear apart a doctor for doing a mistake so they learn, but really... classically, they would just punish people. So this thing where he gets taken apart, he gets called in and taken apart by the board, they would never be in an M&M. You don't have administrators in an M&M. So it sounds like the guy died, I think. That's what I gathered.
The rich benefactor that had the STEMI.
The rich benefactor that had the heart attack that he said they need an angiogram and then left the room of, died. Which actually, kind of like, yeah, that could happen. Because you left him... without blood flow to the heart, and there's no cardiology in place.
And there was nobody in there.
Right, and you kind of left the guy for your collapse. So that could happen.
Well, and their whole crux was that the senior cardiothoracic surgeon was doing the pacemaker instead of doing the angioplasty, or I guess what a cardiothoracic surgeon would be doing would be an emergent bypass, where they open your chest and then they take your vein out of your leg, and then they basically give you new plumbing to your heart. But that's not...
could have been.
I mean, it's a thing that you definitely can do under an emergent circumstance, but...
unlikely.
None of any of this sequence of events would make sense in the reality of how medicine works. And so the big point of the scene is that the administration is mad, and that guy that died he had a wing of the hospital named after him. So they tell Dr. Lawson that it's your fault and to get a good lawyer and go hide for the next 25 years.
Which isn't the way it works either.
No, it's not. But this is the plot device that now we have to. Dr. Lawson needs a new career.
But it sets up his thought process on treating the haves and the have-nots.
Right. That's what the whole thing is about. He's choosing. Yep. He's like, I'm going to do the right thing by the little guy. That's essentially what.
Mm-hmm.
But before you do the right thing or have philosophical thoughts about it, what you do is you have a nice depression montage. You
I love
show
that.
somebody eating and drinking alcohol and eating cereal as an unemployed doctor, watching bad horror movies and eating pizza.
And Field of Dreams.
And
Mask.
Movie after
yeah, that's what it was. The Mask. Yeah, they had the Mask and Chucky.
Not the Mask, but Mask.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I don't have misophonia, but watching him eat Chinese food was very deeply disturbing.
What's misophonia?
You don't like the sound of things.
You don't like watching or hearing.
So if I go like this.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, and you don't like it.
It's puked in my mouth.
Everybody has misophonia
but
when I do it.
He's been out of a job for a month. He's got like a table's worth of collection notices, and love interest lady is super mad.
I mean, as one would be, she's like, "You suck, and you're not doing anything. I'm leaving you." I mean, I don't blame her.
Spend a month on your couch and don't bathe, or
And she even says, "How could you how could you let a billionaire die like that? You messed up our future." Like, that's paraphrasing, but that's kind of what she said.
Our future,
yeah, pretty much,
yeah. So marriage is off. There's no more marriage, and
do you know what's funny too? That she left the ring. And he didn't seem to care. Then she picked it up as she left. And
I kind of
took it.
That.
She's like, you know what? I'm taking the ring.
Yeah,
and then he says, you know what nobody ever says? That I saved the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he saves the kid. I don't know, man.
It's funny with him. Like, he doesn't have any redeeming characteristics to me. You know, like, he doesn't seem like he's a terribly kind doctor. He doesn't seem like he's terribly smart, even later on. And it's like, he's
I
pretty one-dimensional.
they set him up as a bunch of saves. Like if that's what
they
they're trying
say,
to...
but it's just the most ridiculous shite that I've ever seen.
So
on
we're
TV.
in the midst of our again, depression montages.
Again, best scene in the show because there's no talking and it's fast forwarded and it's from a mile away.
All the movers are taking stuff out of the house. Presumably, it's all her stuff, and she's leaving them. But then we get introduced to Evan, and Evan shows up, and we don't find it out here. We will find it out soon. But Evan is Hank Lawson's brother. He's apparently a CPA
and a skis bucket.
A skis bucket bordering on sexual predator.
He's like skinny Jonah Hill.
He is. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
He shows up while they're moving all this stuff out, and like. He wants to get Hank out of the apartment. He's the bro. He's gonna get his groove back.
And literally the bro. They're bros.
They
They're
are
brothers.
But insufferably. This is 2009 insufferable broism. I think we were talking before, and how did you put it, Alba? It's like this is more enjoyable before Me Too.
Like, oh yeah. Yeah, I think before Me Too, I would have liked this episode a lot more than I did since we're post Me Too. I'm like, oh yeah, this is not good.
Mm-hmm. Evan is going to get him out of the apartment because he's got this inside track to a party in the Hamptons. So he's like, dude, you gotta get off the couch, stop watching these bad movies. We're going to a party of the century, and the guy is flying in ice from Antarctica for the cocktails kind of party. That was a line from the show.
Where else would you fly ice from?
That's what he says. Yep. So he does convince his brother to go to the Hamptons and party it up, and it takes us to a traffic jam.
Real quick, do you guys know what kind of beer he was drinking? Because it was annoying the shit out of me. Because I was like, nobody gets depressed and drinks Heinekens, but this isn't Heineken.
Oh,
I don't know what it was.
What would be your sadness beer?
Me? It'd probably be.
Are you going cheap or are you going quality?
No,
I feel like you start
cheap.
quality and you descend cheap.
I would probably start with the IPA from what's the brewery on the river?
Lakefront.
Lakefront IPA.
Sounds
and
good.
then as I was running out of money, I'd probably switch to High Life.
That's fair.
St. George's Scotch Ale for me. It's just a really good beer.
Next, we're at the traffic jam as they're trying to get to the Hamptons, and everybody's going to the Hamptons. I guess it's 4th of July or something. I can't remember what they said. Or Memorial Day.
Yeah.
There we go. And so, we get a little bit of characterization of Evan.
But it's also fall. Sorry. The scenes are also from fall because there's leaves all over the ground.
Oh,
it's like annoying me.
I didn't notice that.
That's good eye.
You got an eagle eye, Mike.
Well, yeah, I was watching this and I already hated it. And then I just was like, I hate everything that I'm so dialed in right now.
Yeah.
That I'm seeing all the little things.
All the anchors. Yeah, so I mean basically this scene just shows us like how eager Evan is to try to sleep with everybody. Like everything. Mm-hmm. So he's like hitting on women in convertibles, etc. Fine. They get through the Hamptons, they do a montage where they're driving past these palatial mansions and all this sort of thing. And at this point I'm like, I want one likable character to show up. I haven't found one character that I enjoy.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to wait for the hospital administrator.
I think we like her. I do.
Well, the later one, not the one we talked about before.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a second hospital administrator character, which is how you know we're in for a
spoilers
show. Yeah. And so, we arrive at the hotel that he booked, which is the Hampt Inn, HAMPT Inn, which is delightful play on words, and it's like a dump, but I was like, no, it's actually kind of nice.
It's nice. It's a huge room.
Yeah, with two freaking beds in there.
I know,
yeah.
but it's the Hamptons. They're playing this like this is a crappy hotel that he booked, and his brother's all mad about it, and he's like, dude, it's got a pool and fine. Like I'd be. It's got a beachfront view. Like it's not a bad place. It'd be great. But I did enjoy. Did you guys like the driving through and like using like MapQuest directions? That was very fun.
Yeah,
that was great.
Oh,
that was very
he had it
very mid
upside
2000s.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a lot of that.
So we go from the hotel, and then we're going to the party, right? And so the whole time, Evan, our main character's brother, has been telling him, "Hey, I've gotten into the party," and what that really means is that he has a fake German ID, and he's going to sneak in by talking to the security guards, who everybody in this scene is faking an accent, but they're all faking different accents at different times. And I was like, our skits earlier in this podcast were more believable in terms of accent work than this scene was. I wrong?
We probably spent more time training for the
I think we
accents
did.
than they did.
Yeah. They blew all their budget on medical materials, educational materials, and no accent coaching.
On plastic bags and
Yeah.
But this is where all the beautiful people are in the world currently, like every one of them. The party is 95% women, which is super unrealistic for any parties that I went to at that age.
Maybe not. Have you ever been to a billionaire's party? I don't know.
I haven't. Have you guys?
No.
Alba, how many billionaire parties? But I will say, like, I definitely have not been to parties like this in real life, but like the camera was like floating through it in this scene, and like my inner introvert was very uncomfortable. I was like, I would not
the camera work was terrible. It was just like it was spring break cutscene from MTV.
And
coverage,
the director told every woman, okay, when it's your turn in the shot, you're going to look over your shoulder and you're going to wave and walk by slowly. And so that's exactly what they all did.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of cutscenes of him like saying I'm poor to a bunch of beautiful women, and then like just saying they're like, oh God, that's so disgusting, I have to leave right away. I'm like, come on.
When really in actuality,
I kind of liked that.
I did kind of find this is where he started winning me a little.
Yeah, he became endearing there because you'd think like, oh, he's not gonna. This guy's gonna be a douche like he seems, and then he's gonna pretend to be someone he's not. But typically, if he was in that situation, he was saying, I'm the opposite of everyone else here, I think there would have been more attraction to him.
Yeah, but whatever.
Yeah, but they were like, ew, you don't have a plane.
Right, I'm like,
fractional ownership of a plane.
Yep. Well, this brings us to our next like kind of medical-y scene where we have there's like a commotion, and then there's a girl who's on the ground vomiting with a group of people around her, like, you know, in a ring. And so, you know, they're all worried because something medically bad is happening to her. And we have, there was a scene earlier where this old guy was like kind of hanging out, bobbing his head and talking to some young woman. And I was like, who the hell is that guy? And then we finally find out who this guy is. It's Dr. Silva. This is the guy who is employed by the super rich dude who owns this place to be the doctor. And he's going to save this woman's life, except no, he doesn't. What happens here?
So, yeah, she's laying on the ground, frothing, and he thinks that there's a combination of drugs. I don't think he says what he thinks they are.
He says a bunch of things topped off with champagne was all I remembered.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I like champagne.
Is going to inject something into her.
Well, he says, quote, kids these days can't hold their drugs. And he moralizes at her for, like, using opiates and all this stuff, which none of this you know she did. And he opens his overdose briefcase. I don't know what it was. I paused it to see what was in there because there's multiple vials and syringes. And I'm pretty sure they just picked up random syringes and put them in there. Because the only one that was like turned that I could read was hydralazine. And that's like it's a blood pressure medicine. Like, it would lower your blood pressure.
He didn't even have a blood pressure cuff. How would he even know to give it?
There was many medical holes here. So I was like, I don't know why that's in that briefcase.
He's just going to inject some stuff in her neck because she overdosed.
In her neck, right? In her neck.
No.
That's what I was worried about. I was like, oh God, what's he doing? He's like, we got to get this into your system quickly. I'm like, is he going to try to inject a vomiting person in the side of their neck like that?
Well,
But
the
they
question
never
was,
said
what was he
what it
going
was.
to? Yeah, what was he going to inject?
I don't know.
That makes sense. But
I thought he said opioids, didn't he? I thought he was going for. I thought they were trying to like imply Narcan.
But,
Maybe that makes
they
too much
called
sense.
everything else out. They would call Narcan out.
Right. And, well, it just so happens that Hank, the doctor, is in this room, and he sees this going on, and he stops the guy, and he says...
he grabs his wrist, doesn't he?
He grabs his wrist, and he's like, I'm a random person. You don't do that. And the guy, like, underreacts. He's sort of like, who are you? And he's just like, oh, I think Hank says, I'm a doctor. But he says, more or less, you're going to kill her because you overlooked the
toxidrome.
The toxidrome, which is our term for like collection of symptoms that point to a type of poison.
This is great.
Toxin.
I loved it.
And he shows up, the older doctor. He tells her she has sludge syndrome.
If somebody says that to me, I'd be like, get out of the room. You are a knucklehead.
Which stands for salivation, lacrimation, urination. Let's see what else. Sludge, defecation. And then what's the
germination?
Evisceration. Yeah. And then is it pinpoint pupils that happens?
No, big pupils.
No, you should with sludge. You should have
mydriasis.
Nope, you should have pinpoint with sludge.
Okay, great. Yeah. That's what I. Okay.
Yeah, so sludge is the acronym we use to remember the symptoms of cholinergic poisoning. And
he later says she has. He said she has biosis, and then he later said that she has mydriasis, which would be small pupils and then big pupils.
Right, but she should.
Whatever.
Yeah, so she should have, with cholinergic, she should have
Small
pupils. Because anticholinergic, you'd have big pupils.
Yeah, you're right.
But you would not say she has sludge syndrome. You would say, I'm worried that she has cholinergic symptoms. And here's the thing. So all those symptoms, salivation, lacrimation, urination, defecation, these are like you're leaking fluids. You're pouring salivation, mouth, you're drooling, your eyes, lacrimation, you're like tearing up like crazy because what's happening is you have a toxin, in this case, a type of pesticide called an organophosphate, which is causing your body to make too much of a chemical called acetylcholine. It won't let it break down. So you start leaking all these places, and basically your airways constrict, and it is dangerous. You can definitely die from these sort of things.
Didn't he say something about like a chemical agent or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then he tells this party at a billionaire's house, like,
it's a chemical nerve agent. Like he actually says that it's a chemical nerve agent.
So then I was like, somebody's trying to kill the billionaire.
That's what I thought too.
Right, that's
initially.
what it sounded like.
That's what I thought
a
he was
chemical
going
nerve
for.
agent sounds
and
like,
everybody
yeah.
Everyone just like backs away. That's not an unreasonable reaction. If he says there's a nerve agent like sarin gas and such, like you will get poisoned if you're too close to that patient or you touch them. So like it's not unreasonable to back away.
Was she sniffing? She was sniffing the flowers.
Yeah, we find out she was sniffing the flowers in the garden, and the roses had apparently a gigantic dose of organophosphate.
I thought it was going to be Foxglove. I thought it was going to be Digitalis or something, which would have been better.
I mean, you didn't get it by sniffing, but yeah, no,
I would. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would have been a cooler thing. But yeah, so I did try to look up. I was like, I wonder, can you get organophosphate? And again, that's a pesticide. Can you get poisoning from that by sniffing a rose that has? I couldn't find a great answer to that, so I don't know.
I strongly doubt it.
Drink a bottle of it to get that level of
just
poisoning.
Like sniff a line of it.
You got it.
I thought it was cocaine. It was really neat.
Good news is that apparently Hank Lawson knew exactly what kind of accents the bodyguards in the entryway had, because I couldn't figure it out. But he said, "Oh, you have Mossad, which Israeli Secret Service more or less, working for you. So they probably are carrying Mark I kits, is what he calls it. Therefore, go get that because it will have a reversal agent for this poison." He sends somebody to go get it, and I'm for a second I'm
awesome.
Like,
I loved it.
I
was
but
like,
I did look it up.
That's so great. This is so great.
Basically, he made the leap to say they're Mossad, so they're probably carrying these special Mark I kits, which I looked up. Those are actually a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they said it, honestly, at the door. I think they said it.
Like
that they're Mossad somehow?
Yeah.
I guess I might have missed that.
I don't know.
So the basically the important thing is that they happen to have these auto injectors which have the antidote to.
It's an auto injector, but why did he have to shove it through her leg?
I don't know.
I was like,
that thing.
How much of that needle is going to go into this poor woman's body?
Yeah, I was like, why do you hate this girl? You've never met her.
You don't have to slam it.
Nope. Well, but hey, they managed to get her up to a bed where she's recovering, and Boris, the just sort of at this point vague German businessman who owns this giant mansion, who's having the party, offers Hank, for saving this girl, offers him a concierge doc position. Work for me, and hey, all your problems will go away. Can you guys explain what a concierge doc is?
I mean, rich people pay doctors to come make house calls whenever they want, and
you're like on retainer. You're like on retainer.
Yeah, but not often like this. It would be like, hey, I've got a sore throat. I don't feel like going to the hospital. What do you think?
This is a real thing, though. This is a whole phenomenon, right? So you don't take insurance. You pay tons of money. And this doc is on call for you whenever you want. And they, I think there's IV clinics as well. These people probably have staffs that can show up and do a whole bunch of care for rich folks.
You know who had a concierge doc? Michael Jackson. It didn't turn out well.
Propofol. There you go, buddy.
Yep. But yeah, so that's the idea here is that, well, hey, he impressed the guy. Now he's going to hire him to be his super, like, the ultra wealthy doc, or the doc for the ultra wealthy.
Can I just ask a question quick? Mm-hmm. So this guy doesn't want the lady to go to the hospital because he doesn't want any bad publicity, but he's willing to risk not taking this person to a facility and actually get life-saving treatment, and wants this other guy, Dr. Swivel or whatever his name is, to treat her.
It's Hank.
There's a strong possibility that she will die. Isn't that a worse public relations
stunt? You know
what
I
just
think
bury
happens
the body
if she,
somewhere.
there we go, exactly.
She'd just disappear if she died.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yep. So
but then why does it matter? Then don't treat her at all. go put her in the flower
Well,
garden.
he'd
because
rather
got
she not
pesticides
die.
on her.
She's a friend. Come on, if we can save her, do. But if not, then she gets buried.
Also, he said the local hospital was useless. So he's
They
like,
said
And
it
that's
was
a running joke, too.
cemetery or
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
it's
Everybody
a
in this
taco
area of the
stand.
Hamptons says the local hospital is bad.
A joke.
But we
Do you think the person that wrote this show went to that hospital and had bad service, and then they wrote the show just to dog on that hospital?
You skip my favorite part though, the lifeguard part. Like at the end,
Oh, yeah.
a guy runs in. He's like, "I'll take care of her from here." He's like, "Who are you?" "I'm the lifeguard." I was like, "Yes, that is exactly the energy."
That actually
of...
happened to me and Max. We won't share that story, but that happened to me and Max. The two physicians on scene for an
It's
injury
happened to me
and-
too. Yeah, I've had like a pair, like somebody run in and be like, "I'll take over," and be like, "Who
that
are
could be
you?"
patron content afterwards. Okay, so basically, Hank says no. I don't want to take this job that would absolutely fix all of my problems. And at this point in the show, I was like, why not?
Why would you not
Why
take
would you say no?
Yeah. Why would you say no?
As much as I'm beating that up now, there is an explanation that we'll get to, which in retrospect, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. But
maybe.
at this point, I was like, come
I
on.
felt that he had. It was painfully obvious that he had to say no as a plot point.
That-
It was just
exactly.
like,
I was
this
like-
is where we're going to have our conflict, and so he's just going to keep saying no.
But this specifically, I think they're saying like he was a good Samaritan. So then he's actually protected under law if something bad happens, if he intervened and tried to help this girl. But if he takes compensation, then he's not.
I mean, it
Oh, I
might have
s-
been one, but it wasn't very
okay.
clear. And so I was like, oh, you just
Yeah, he said,
want
I've got
this-
an obligation to help and I don't want to accept payment.
Oh, okay. Well,
Mhm.
either way, he turns them down, and then he leaves the party, and it just so happens that somebody else is driving a Saab 600 in a dull green color that he runs into at the valet station, and it's a beautiful woman, and they both have what at this Hamptons party are like poor people cars. It's a fine car. I mean, whatever, but.
Mhm. That's not a poor people car around by us. That's like
I
you
know
have a
that's
Saab,
still
nice.
pretty nice. You got a Saab convertible. I think
Yeah.
you're doing fine.
You
But he
made
runs
it.
into this woman, and she will be important later. Cool. You have a Saab, I have a Saab. We will be friends. As he leaves the place with his brother, who Evan was there the whole time at the party, now Evan is sad because Evan couldn't take anybody home because his brother pulled him out of the party early. Sorry, Evan. They're driving away. They notice a briefcase in the back seat, which has a Bob Menendez-style gold bar in it.
How did they know it was the right Saab? What if they put it in the wrong Saab? There's
Sure.
two of the same.
This guy has so many gold bars, it wouldn't matter. All right.
Maybe he
well,
put one in each one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, what was this? Oh, Boris is really pushing hard to try to hire this guy. And so he's like, here's a gold bar, which is, again, a weird payment.
Yeah.
I'm getting Slugworth vibes from Boris, though. I don't know. Like
Slugworth, what is that?
Willy Wonka, the guy that tries to steal the everlasting gobstopper. He's like tempting him. Like maybe he's a part of the medical review board. And then the more times he says no, then they'll be like, we'll reinstate you. You passed your test.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie either.
You haven't seen Willy Wonka?
Nope.
What? I thought you said you liked horror movies.
I do. It's not scary
It's
enough,
terrifying.
or it's too
The boat
scary.
scene?
Whichever one. Wait, no. Oh, yeah. So the next morning, we're back at the hotel room. His brother Evan is sharing his bed and like sleepily creeping on a German girl in his dreams, which this was just...
I think he's assaulting a
He's-
girl in his dreams. Maybe
Yeah, it's
is
kinda
what
what
it
I
sounded
thought.
like.
I was
Maybe.
like, this guy's gross. I don't know why he's still in the show. But Hank, our doctor, our hero, gets an address texted to him. Like, and the phone rings, and it's mysterious. But he has to be called. He goes out to the middle of somewhere else in rich people land, and there's a kid standing in front, like a teenager, standing in front of a totaled Ferrari. And he called up Hank because he got the number somehow of like, this doctor will help everybody.
From the party
Because
last night.
news travels fast in the Hamptons.
Correct. That
We
will
hear
be
that a
used a
couple
lot
times.
in the show. Kid's got like some blood on his shirt, and he's like, "Hey, my girlfriend's hurt. I called you to come help."
It's Ezra Miller, too, by the way.
Is that who that kid is?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
He went on.
You didn't recognize him?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
He's actually a
Everything-
pretty good teen
Everything's
actor.
going well for him. Yeah. Right now, right?
It's very.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his girlfriend's injured. He wrecked the Ferrari. His dad's not home because his dad's so rich he's just not home. And he called up Hank to come check her out and patch her up, and that's basically what this is about. So his name is getting passed around the rich community to help other people in need. And so
and she's Googling her symptoms on a Michael Keaton
girlfriend is.
Batman computer
Yeah.
panel.
there were 6 monitors. I counted
She has a
them.
laceration to her
Yep.
scalp,
Yep.
but she's convinced that she has all these other things.
But she's got 6 monitors going at once, and I was like, I would love to have that set up. Like as a gamer, like that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice
to
setup.
have all those monitors. You'd feel
Overlooking
the
the
warmth off of it.
ocean.
It'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was like the Madame Web guys. computer set.
Yeah.
Oh
it was.
yeah,
It was.
several. Yeah.
So yeah, she's Googling her symptoms like furiously, and that's setting that bit up. And we basically bounce between this, and then so we're back at the hotel room, and the girl who Hank had saved shows up to meet Hank's sexually aggressive brother, who's in his boxers in the room by himself. She's looking for Hank, but he's there, and it just is like, I've heard the term ick from TikToks, and I think it applies here.
I got it from both, though. I got the ick from both of them. I didn't like either one of them.
No, I
but
think
she at
that's
least
fair.
she's like was showing up to say hello to this guy. He like took a
No,
picture
she
of her
wasn't.
and
Yeah.
then showered while she was in
Oh.
the room, and then walked
No,
in
but
with a
she-
towel, and then
No, she
Oh,
went
God,
there
yeah.
and she's like, "Hey, listen, he's like, I'll tell Hank that you were here. I'll pass along your number." She's like, "It would be pretty awkward for you to tell this man that I love him," like something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like,
But yeah, fair.
Okay.
But I don't know.
so she entered
Yeah.
his room and sat on his bed.
That was weird. I feel like
Yeah, and then slowly took off the jacket, and then her hair
what was
is
that
flying
about?
everywhere,
Yeah.
and she
Mhm.
picks up her dress to sit down. It was
Mhm.
like,
I
what?
think they were trying to show us that she's attractive. I think that kind of was.
Yeah.
Like,
She's. Yeah.
Well, she's kind of like messing with him a bit, I think, is part of it too, which fine. But back at the Ferrari totaled house, Hank is patching up the girl. She basically has a little laceration, but she's been Googling it, so she thinks she has a head bleed and all these things. And she tells Hank that she has fibromyalgia, and that she has all these medical problems. And I was like, this scene had to have been written by like a really burned out, cynical physician for sure. Like I get what they're trying to say, but like, come on. And Hank gives her a new diagnosis that I had never heard of, but apparently is an unofficial diagnosis of cyberchondriasis.
Oh,
which
this
is
is a real thing. It wasn't made up.
Sort of
It was probably from the early aughts.
might have. Okay, so as Elba adjusts her camera, you have in your hands a DSM-5.
I do. I
Ooh,
can
a
find
five.
it.
Ooh, a five. A five.
Folks, it's a 5TR.
I was trained on the
which is like-
4.
I forget what
This is the
TR
giant
stands
manual
for.
of all like
Text
kind of
revision.
mental health diagnoses and criteria.
It's probably just hypochondriasis from
I
Googling
think
symptoms.
my guess is that it's a specified hypochondriasis. It's like hypochondriasis is specified as having come
It
from
may be,
Googling.
yeah. So it's not an official thing, but basically the idea is that folks who have a lot of access to internet sources can sometimes develop a hypochondriasis where you think you have a variety of illnesses which you don't, by looking them up, and like you have vague symptoms, you look them up, and then you think that you have like a rare disease with this. And apparently
Or
it's a
people that go to medical
phenomenon.
school.
Of course it is. I can see every medical student has gone through a variation of this, certainly.
Kind of a
But,
gutsy call for a lady who was in a car accident with a head injury, though.
yeah, I
mean,
agree. I agree.
Mhm.
And can I just say, this is
Also-
like kind of something that irritates me about shows like this is that the issue that happens in the show of them showing one medical doctor doing all of these different jobs and like the gross oversimplification of medicine is a huge contributor to people thinking that it's way more simple than it is. And then people think like, oh, well, every doctor knows all medicine, right? If you're a doctor, then you're a doctor and you know all medicine, is like the impression that I had for a long time. And so then you think, oh, well, with Google, I could just figure out the things that are relevant to me, not realizing like it is so much more complex than I had ever imagined before I started doing this show with you guys. And I know that it is way more complex even than the scope that I have right now. So like, I feel like the show is contributing to the problem of that kind of patient that's in the show.
Oh,
you know?
in that way,
preach.
and the fact that he basically dismisses her symptoms, and he's the hero. That's the other way that this bothered me. It's like, okay, look, there are definitely folks who kind of have these issues where they do overanalyze their symptoms, etc. But there's a lot of folks who do that, and they have real things going on, and they get dismissed, and then you end up in this like you end up with the problem of like taking whole sets of symptoms and like people who have those symptoms and mischaracterizing them and minimizing what's going on. And it is tough because a lot of folks who may have similar presentations that this person did may not have anything wrong with them, but he's very dismissive quickly. And I mean, they wrote the script, so he's right. And it's funny because she's like, oh, she seems to totally accept this explanation of it's all in your head.
Which is, if she had that, there's absolutely no way there'd be a huge fight, and she would be like, "You're wrong."
Right.
Also, I hate it's all in your head. Just it's punching down. That's what I don't like about it. Just from a humor standpoint, like don't even do this. I mean, you could have her be upset, and she turns out to be fine, and it's a misdirection for what happens to next. Spoiler, but like you could do that without making it into some whole thing about fibromyalgia and cyberchondriasis.
That's why I say cynical doc wrote that scene.
We won't make those diagnoses. We'll make those suggestions, but only after a workup. Only after we're convinced that there's nothing. Also, hey, maybe there's something else.
Gutsy.
And it wouldn't be
You're in a car accident, you have a head wound, but you look fine, but I'm going to say it's all in your head.
Now, if he was at the house 6 days in a row, that's a different story.
Right.
So we cut back to the hotel where Hank's brother Evan is still babysitting this young lady he saved. Her name is April. I think they say it here, so her name is April. And then another mysterious, gorgeous woman shows up, also looking for Hank, but we've never met her before. It's not clear who this is. We'll find out soon enough. So that's just a quick aside. And then we're back to the Ferrari wrecked house where we've said she has this young lady. Hank has said she has cyberchondriasis. It's all in her head. Everything's on an up note until a huge curveball because the kid, the Ezra Miller kid, his name is Tucker, by the way. He's walking downstairs. Thanks for helping out my girlfriend, and he gets woozy and collapses. And he's got a medical condition he didn't disclose, but for some reason, Hank could just tell by looking at him. Which makes no
it's
sense.
The dumbest.
What I took it. Okay, so I'm going to say, as a non-medical person, I'm interested to hear the review of this scene because they did a good job of convincing me they knew what they were talking about. I took it as like all the marks on his skin. I was like, oh, there must be something about the marks on his skin that says that his blood doesn't clot right.
Well, that's the curve. So
that's what they're trying to suggest. But he was in a car crash with a seatbelt on. And it's not unusual to bruise from an injury like that.
If you see a bruise after a car crash with a seatbelt, we call it a seatbelt sign for a reason. It means you hit hard enough to bruise the skin. And that means it could have some real injuries inside the torso. We take that pretty seriously. But Hank opens up this kid's shirt and he looks at him. He's like, you're a hemophiliac. No, not how that works.
That's so great.
You can't look at the skin and see bruising and say you're a
No,
hemophiliac.
he said, why didn't you tell me you're a hemophiliac? Where's your kit?
Right.
Like he's supposed to say, hello, nice to meet you. I'm a hemophiliac.
Right. You want to introduce that pretty early.
Don't squeeze my hand too hard.
Well,
the factor. So he says, where's your factor 8?
That's a real... Yeah, why don't you talk about what hemophilia is and then what that means?
Oh, geez. It's an inherited blood disorder that prevents... Go back, Mike.
No, I was saying skip it.
Clotting? Is it you can't clot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
It's a genetic
so there's a
thing.
very complex set of enzymes that helps your blood clot, and hemophiliacs don't have certain sections of that cascade, so you don't clot correctly and you bleed, sometimes spontaneously. It would be a terrible thing in trauma. I mean, that's
right,
true
that
if
part
you knew
is
you were
true.
a hemophiliac.
Even if minor bleeding could potentially be life-threatening.
Correct. All that part is true.
Yeah, but I've never seen a hemophiliac have a bunch of skin signs that would clue me in that they're a hemophiliac. They come in and they say, I'm a hemophiliac. I was in a car accident. This hurts.
Yeah.
That's
It would have been hammered into this kid from a young age. Like, let them know. He might even have a bracelet on or something like that.
Yeah. Correct. So basically, hemophiliacs are lacking basically one of their proteins that makes your blood clot. There's different kinds. There's different like hemophilia A and B and all that sort of thing. But whichever one, he says, usually what hemophiliacs will have is a factor, which is that protein that they're missing. They have it. We can make it synthetically, and they keep it on them so that if there is an injury, we can give that factor to help their blood clot. Basically, it gives that thing that they can't make themselves. And so because Hank can look at his skin and just sort of know he's a hemophiliac, which is not real, but okay, fine. He says, okay, where's your kit? Tucker, the kid, says, "Oh, it's over there," as he passes out. And then we have a super fun medical procedure, I think.
Oh,
happen.
My God. Okay, can I just say, so he was in a car crash.
Right.
It's undifferentiated trauma. He appears well. He's walking well.
Mhm.
Then he collapses. And this guy goes straight to this one spot but again, is he bleeding his abdomen? Now his blood count is so low that he passed out. Does he have an epidural hematoma? Because you'd have a lucent
Which
period
means-
and then you would bleeding outside the brain.
Mhm.
Does he have thoracic trauma? Is that really where we're going? And he goes to the most unlikely type of injury that there possibly, or the show does.
Right.
Yeah, if you collapsed
this-
lung would do this. If he collapsed a lung.
Yeah. So I was thinking he's gonna put a needle in his lung. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So but what he says is, he listens to the heart sounds, and then he says, "Oh no, he's
it's
got a
muffled
Bex."
heart sounds or
Yeah, he's got a Bex, is how he says it, which is, I don't think they taught. There's something called Bex triad, which is a
He's
set
got a
of-
Bex.
He says he's got a Bex, and I think that's what he means is he's got a
Yeah.
Bex triad is how we
Yeah,
say
it's
there are
gotta
these
be.
3 symptoms that you hear that,
Isn't it-
or feel or detect that point to the fact that there's probably blood around the heart that's compressing it and not letting it beat.
Muffled heart tones, laterally displaced apical beat, pulses or electrical
Pulsus
pulsus
paradoxus?
paradoxus.
Is that the other
Yeah,
one?
what that really means in the
Electrical
modern age,
ultrasounds.
we'll check with an ultrasound and see if we're right. So he says, basically, he thinks that this kid bruised his heart because he says cardiac contusion, and that it's bleeding into the sac around his heart, the pericardium. It's like this thick fibrous sac that surrounds your heart. And yes, if you have blood accumulating, whether you have hemophilia or not, like it can
ain't
likely
good.
kill you. I mean, basically your heart is in this tough, rigid sac, and as it fills with blood, the heart can't expand.
I
Therefore,
dare you
it
to say
can't-
sac one more time.
sac.
Sack.
Pericardial sac. But yeah, the heart can't expand with all that blood, and so yeah, what you would do is you would put a needle in the pericardium, the pericardial sac, and
But
then
he doesn't have a needle, even though he just had a kit brought over that had a bunch of needles in it.
that is true. What does he do with
doesn't
Ted?
have a
Yeah,
needle.
what the French toast? That doesn't make any sense.
Alba, watch your language.
You're going to use a Bic pen. You must as well use an old needle.
He's using a big pen.
This is very true. I
He
know he
says-
sterilized it with vodka. It's okay. He poured
He did.
all
He
the
says,
water
the-
on it, just
Oh, and then the list of things that he needed, like he had
like
chambered, ready to go.
Yep. He's like, oh, I need vodka, a sharp knife, a sandwich baggie, duct tape, and a big pen.
it's also
And
not
this
an
can cost-
easy. That's not an easy scavenger list.
Yeah,
that would
she's
take
like,
the girl
"Got
once.
it."
She's like, got it. Yes.
Yep, you're in the basement, you're in the garage, you're in the kitchen, you're all over.
Also, the
The
way they
office.
painted this character, like, do we really think she's going to remember those things?
No,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. She should have run back with like, do you want the cucumber infused vodka, or does it matter if you've got the
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it
right.
would have been.
like?
What about the size of the wound or the incision that he puts in there?
Ooh,
does-
it's a big one. It's a big one.
He does-
It's a-
He does what we call a
Semi-
pericardial window. Basically, he
Yeah.
opens up he uses the knife to open up the pericardium, like basically. Yeah, he opens this guy's chest, and that's not how you would do that. You would put you try to put a needle in to like take out the fluid and do as little damage as possible. But he opens
This is a
up.
perimortem procedure as
This
well.
is yes. This is look. You have no other options, I guess. I don't know how you're gonna justify it when in real life, if you were to do this and the paramedics show up and there's a big pen sitting out of the chest with duct tape wrapped around it, you're like, I did the best I could. You're like, I don't
With a
think
BlackBerry
so.
sitting next to the kid,
Right.
911,
All
ready
right,
to go.
Kill you.
So I don't think it's super defensible, but yeah, he cuts open the pericardium, leaves the Bic pen in there as a drain, like the tube of it, and duct tapes it to the kid's chest and sends him off on a helicopter to cyanide.
And then he's fine. He's like talking to him on the way to the
Totally
helicopter.
awake, It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I was like, God, none of this. Except before he did the procedure, he did give him the factor 8, which the blood clotting substance. the
He's
kid
clotting.
needs.
He kept saying he's clotting.
Yep.
He's clotting.
Yep.
He's clotting.
I mean, I was like, okay, I guess.
That was the only realistic thing.
Yeah.
He's probably, we would all be losing our minds. We'd be like, he's clotting. He's clotting. Like, we would be freaking out.
But we're not Hank.
I didn't
Walker.
like the fact that the medevac guys, clearly one, that's not a medical helicopter. They put some things, but there was a seat in it. 2, they weren't wearing helmets. That's unbelievable.
That's
They just
true.
had baseball caps on.
You wanted an
What?
actual med flight to show up. You're like, no, none of that either.
Yeah.
Those types of things, I'm kind of like, okay.
I'm not okay.
So all this, he saved the day, right? And then we have kind of a series of things that happen. So Hank returns to the hotel room. There's these two beautiful women with his creepy brother sitting there. One of them is the girl he saves, and basically she's like, I love you, and he's like, you have Nightingale syndrome. You're just attached to me because I saved your life. Piss off.
Is that a thing? I guess it is.
I didn't look it up, but it sounds
trope.
right. Like, basically developing, an affection for the person who saves you. I feel like it's probably a thing. I mean,
it's a movie trope.
It's a movie trope, at least. I don't know if that's a diagnosis, but
The English Patient. While you were sleeping.
Getting weird. But the other woman who had shown up was her name is Divya, and she's a physician assistant who heard about his traipsing around already in like 24 hours, and she's like, I want to be your personal PA because you're going to be a concierge doc. I have a whole business plan I wrote up for you, by the way. I have an entire practical ambulance stocked in the back of my car, and I already know all these rich people, so like I'm gonna make
full of hydralazine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that was the other guy's thing. That was the
Why?
No, I know.
Yeah, but she's like, I'm ready to do this business with you, and she wants to be like, let's make a concierge business together. Which was like,
and he's like, no, I want to go back to my foreclosed apartment in Brooklyn where there's no job.
Yeah,
I'm like, what
still
the
doesn't
heck?
make any sense. I gotta say, Divya is the only non-caricature female character in this whole episode.
Yeah.
She did a lot of work to redeem the show. I was gonna think they had never met a woman before.
I completely agree. And then there's
but no, she is kind of a archetype though. She's like the boss babe archetype.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Not
that's
unredeemable, but
no.
Yeah, definitely.
But she there's a point where she's trying to convince Hank, like, let's hop in my medical mobile and let's go. There's a patient, let's go see them. And Hank's like, I want to go back to my sad life. And Evans, his brother, who's also a CPA, was like, dude, why would you say no to this? And he's being super creepy to Divya, at which my favorite moment is when she puts him in a spot. She's like, quit objectifying me and shut up. And I was like, that's excellent. I was like, all right, she's my favorite character.
Can I predict what's going to happen with her just real quick? I know we're running a long time. What's going to happen is that over the course of a couple seasons, she's going to like Hank. Hank isn't going to like her, but she's going to take her glasses off, and then he's going to realize that she's beautiful.
You were so beautiful all the time.
God. She's going to take her side ponytail out, too.
When that happens, I'm going to rip my TV off the wall and move to Saskatchewan.
Yep. Well, okay, so Divya... Or Hank's phone, I can't remember if it was Hank's phone or she had, as she's trying to convince him, the phone goes off, and it's this lady, a Mrs. Newberg, who is trying to get a hold of Hank because she wants an immediate visit. And I don't remember what the crux was. Like, okay, fine, we'll go see her. They go, and the address that she sent him is the hospital, the crappy, quote unquote, crappy hospital that they sent. And Mrs. Newberg is wearing a fur coat. She's at the triage desk, like just barreling down on the triage nurse because it's taking too long. And I was like, okay, now this is actually realistic. I've definitely seen this happens all the time. And she wants immediate treatment, blah, blah, blah. And Hank is still like, kind of like, I'm here, but I'm not totally sold on being this kind of doctor. But I will say, as far as every bit of medicine in this show, the way that this plays out, this was actually kind of like the most reasonable series of circumstances. Mrs. Newberg's problem is that one of her implants, her breast implants, has broken or deflated. And so I think it was the left breast, the implant has ruptured. And so she says, quote, I've got a flat tire. And the asymmetry of her chest is extremely bothersome to her. She wants it fixed now. And Hank's like, that's not how any of this happens.
So instead of calling her plastic surgeon, she goes to the emergency department.
I mean, that does. I mean, go to the ER is fine, but like, she goes there and she's like demanding this immediate treatment, and her surgeons are not at this hospital, mind you. Blah blah blah. Okay, great. And Hank's like, I don't know. I don't really know if I want to do this, but the hospital administrator of this little hospital is the attractive woman who also drove the Saab 600.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
There she is.
She's like, I'd be happy if you took her off my out of my waiting room. And he's like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah, he's motivated by cute women.
I mean, yeah, that happens. So how do you fix the implant if you can't? You're an ER doctor. You you cannot do breast surgery. And she says it's a saline implant, and that is important. It's a silicone implants are treated a little differently when they rupture. But saline is just salt water. And she's like, I want the problem solved. He's not a breast surgeon. He's not going to put a new one in. And the procedure he comes up with to like solve the problem, I was like, this is actually the most reasonable thing under the circumstances in the insanity of this universe.
Mm-hmm.
Just drain the other one with a needle.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, well, one of them's
Is
inflated.
it his idea or Divya's idea? I'm trying to remember, or she just says I have the equipment. Maybe
I think it was his idea.
Yeah.
But she says she's got some stuff, and he's like, oh, we'll just drain the one that's non-ruptured until we have a symmetric appearance to the chest. And I was like, you know what? Honestly, of all the stuff we've seen him do, this is the safest.
Okay, but call me crazy. If you poke a hole in a bag filled with saline and you drain some of the liquid out, what's to stop it all from pouring?
No, we'd have to
It's
drain
all
it all
going
out.
to come out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You
It's
could
all
drain it all
drained.
out.
So he just because then she says, yeah, it was a total waste of work. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so eventually, the surgeon would go in there, take out the old implants, put in new ones, et cetera, et cetera. But the saline wouldn't be toxic. It was just salt water. So it'd be like, you get an IV in your arm. It's the same stuff in these type of implants, more or less. And so
She's hydrated now.
She's very, very hydrated. Yes.
hydrated and symmetric.
Exactly. That's how they hydrate your pets when you go in and you get a big old just saline.
She
into the-
hydrated
It
her
is,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Put a bunch of fluid under the skin. Absolutely. But now, she is very grateful. Mrs. Newberg loves Hank. And she's like, why don't you and your creepy brother come to my house party tonight? And we get a lot of pondering on the beach where Hank's like, I don't know if I want to be this doctor. And I'm still going like, why? What would you say no to this? This is like a great opportunity.
Yeah, like, are you insane?
Yeah.
To live in a beautiful mansion on the beach, you're broke, you have like, your life is coming to an end, essentially. You have like, what? It makes no sense.
No ability to practice medicine, and they're just giving it to you as a gift. Like, we want you.
Right.
He's like, I don't know.
It's like a dream. You're going to spend your summer in the Hamptons making $1 jillion in gold
Yeah.
bars.
No,
Yes,
I'm going to go
please.
back to the level 1 trauma center in urban New York. No, thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
Oh,
and
God.
well, so he has this pep talk on the beach with Evan, the brother, who this is the one time he's not creepy. It's actually kind of endearing. He's just like, hey, I remember our parents, and there's like
this is
this
actually
whole thing.
gets like the one.
And was it
better
that his
scenes.
parents didn't have a lot of money? Was that one of the things?
They lost
Yeah.
all their money on Black Monday.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So and basically Hank's like, look, I feel weird about these people have in the Hamptons. They have plenty of money. I don't feel like they need a doctor out here. There's a lot of other people who don't have money who need a doctor, and I'd feel a lot better about practicing in those circumstances. And I was like, you know what, movie or show? I was like, okay, I guess I see why he has the hesitation. And I was like, it did call back to the beginning where he prioritized the basketball player over the VIP of the hospital. And I was like, all right, well played. I'll give you that. Like, it's not the greatest writing, but damn, is it good compared to the other stuff we've watched. And
Yeah, I liked it.
I wasn't mad
But
about
he just doesn't seem like that's the kind of guy that he is. Like,
Sure. Well,
he's
it
at
might
the
be the-
fancy restaurant.
might be
He's
the
leaving
actor.
the $20 tip under the menu.
Yeah,
True,
he's dating
true.
the bozo. Come on, it doesn't make any
And,
sense.
and now he's like this.
I nailed the down payment, didn't I?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
We see through you.
If you sit back at the end of this episode and you think about the Hank then and the Hank in the beginning, I think there's an evolution of the character that is reasonable and I kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's not the worst we've seen.
Yeah,
I would rather spend time with Hank than Dr. Conrad Hawkins.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh,
I'd hang out.
so-
with him.
Absolutely. So we're just about the end of this pilot, but Hank's like, it's a great pep talk by my brother. I'm just not sure I'm ready to be there. When the hospital administrator, I think I forgot to write down her name, but she is love interest who runs the hospital.
Love interest number 2.
Love interest number 2. She gives
Number
him
3.
a nice pep talk as well, and she says, here's the thing. You're going back and forth about this, and yeah, I mean, a lot of these people out here have lots of money, but the people I take care of at the hospital don't always have a lot of money. And so there's good to be done here. And actually, Boris, that super rich guy who has that mansion you were partying at, he's helping raise money for a free clinic. And so if we can keep that going, then that'd be awesome. We can help a lot more people. And he's like, all right, fine. You can be my love interest and I will stay and make lots of money and be a concierge doc. So he goes back to Boris's mansion. And on the way, he like gives Tucker, the kid he saved, a call. He's like, "Hey man, how's your pericardial window?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing great," and like no, and his dad's still not going to be home, and all this stuff. And well, Boris hires him as a concierge, Doc.
Oh, just wait. But with the Tucker thing, he was going to go play catch with him or something.
He was going to fly model
yeah.
airplanes in the backyard. Model airplanes.
When did they ever talk about that?
They talked about it earlier, right before he faints. He's like, "Yeah, man, you should come hang out. We can fly planes in the backyard." And Hank's like, "No, I'm only going to be around for this weekend." But then when he calls him on his way back to Boris's, he's like, "Oh, I extended through the summer so we can fly model planes."
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So now they're going to be friends.
Is that like an upside down pineapple? Is that some other thing from 2009? That means he's like a
Flying
swing
model
or something.
planes.
I don't think so. I had to. Her
hope
name is
not.
Jill, by the way, the hospital administrator.
Okay, Jill. Jill and Divya are the most redeeming characters out of the gate. Like they are the
But
two.
Jill is because she doesn't say much, and then I
Right.
think Divvy's insufferable. And
I still don't
But
think
Divya
it's
is
good,
fine,
right?
you know.
I don't think it's good writing of female characters.
No,
No,
they
but-
don't have a lot of depth.
They're likable. Yeah, no depth, but they're likable.
Well, so Hank goes back to Boris, says, "Okay, I want to be your doc." And Boris is like, "Cool, here's my giant summer cottage in the back of my giant mansion." And as Hank's about to take it over and Evan's going to stay with him, the other doc, Dr. Sylvia, the one who failed at the party, walks out and says something to the effect of, you ain't seen nothing yet."
Yeah.
or you ain't seen the last of me.
Buckle up or
Keep your
something
eyes
like
open.
that.
You ain't seen
Yeah.
nothing yet. I'm like, ooh, lay the groundwork for the rest of the series.
And with that, Dr. Hank Lawson is now a concierge doc in the Hamptons, and wackiness will probably ensue. So that, after taking in the first episode of Royal Pains, between Dr. Conrad Hawkins from The Resident and Dr. Hank Lawson from this series, I think I know the answer to this. Who would you rather have as your ER doctor and why?
Yeah, I mean, Hank Lawson is at least going to put the central line in facing the right way. Oh, wait, that
Good.
was his resident.
No, but he okayed the procedure, so I think you're still right.
I think Hank.
Yeah, but Hank would have just annoyed the crap out of me.
He
was
might
like,
put a big pen somewhere
narrating.
in my body, and I'm going to be like, no.
Yeah, it's
Don't
like
do that.
knock, knock, knock.
Neither one.
Dr. Hank walks into the room. Dr. Hank asks the patient a question. Dr. Hank then examines the patient. "I'm listening to you with a stethoscope. I'm pushing on you with my fingertips. I'm exiting the room. I'm turning the doorknob."
I said,
I'm
wait,
pulling the
Divya is a
door shut."
physician assistant. Can I?
Yeah, can we pick Divya?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we should. In this case, it might be safer.
But I also don't think that they know what that means because she's a physician's assistant, but she's only assisting him, like
Yeah,
with a
I'm
business plan and
afraid.
things like that.
I'm afraid she has all the stuff, but she hasn't done any. So I'm interested to see how they show the role of
Not
yeah.
actually a physician's assistant, in other
Yeah,
words.
they're making it sound like she's an assistant to a physician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she looks like a business lady. She's got the clipboard.
Sounds like we would want to
The
watch
business
another
plan.
episode of this at least.
I don't know.
I think Alba already did.
I
You
started
wanted
to.
to.
Yeah. It was
This is,
going.
it's a low bar, but it's the best of the ones we've watched so far.
It's like a low bar pneumonia.
I feel like I would go with Hank for the ethics if I had to choose.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's,
that's
for
fair.
the
That's a
ethics.
fair move.
Well,
Very
with
true.
that, we appreciate everyone listening, and we'd love to hear from all of you out there. So if you'd like to check out our merchandise or provide feedback, we can be reached through our website, www.horrorhistorianspod.com. There you can send us messages and find links to all our social media sites. We do work to respond to all those posts on our various social media accounts and are most active over on Threads at the moment. If you have time, please go and leave us a nice 5-star review on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you choose. If you want to take your connection with the show to the next level and have the ability to support us, or have the ability to support the show in monetary ways, check out our new Patreon page for an option in the show notes. Until next time, the Horror Historians are signing out. AMA. Okay. All right. Royal Pains, Episode 1, plot. Pilot. Plot. Pilot.
Pio.